What are your thoughts?
This all makes, to me, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's so beautiful. So one little pitch for
Yes,
me
of course.
is, can you all hear me? Okay, am I talking loud enough? Yeah, sure. So, let's see, how do I say this? My framework,
Yes.
you know, coming from a science background, is that, you know, there's no, like, to see God means there's God and then there's us.
Yes.
And, like, I use the word universe instead of God. Like, I feel like everything ultimately is awareness
Yes.
as the fundamental foundation. We are manifestations of awareness, and there's this concept about the universe becoming aware of itself, aware of itself through us.
Yes.
And our awareness.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to connect that with
Connect
the
the
God
dots.
concept.
Well, your concepts actually are based in Hinduism. In other words, the whole idea of universal consciousness and all this are come out of the Hindu teachings, which are actually good teachings, and it's all true. And at the same time, God is in everything, and consciousness is in everything, but we're not necessarily conscious of that, right? We're cut off from it.
Absolutely.
And that's the problem. The problem
Right.
is our own veiling from
Right.
it.
Absolutely.
So at some level, at one level, what we're returning to is God consciousness, which is the same. Is that connected up?
Kind of. Yeah, I need to sort of integrate for a little bit, but yeah, that, I don't know, let me think about that.
Good, keep
And we
working.
still have tomorrow, right?
Yeah. We'll have them all in the first 2 minutes, exactly, right? I mean, when in the Sufi way, we say there's different forms of consciousness, all right? So, and there's basically ontological levels of consciousness. So, for example, what would the lowest consciousness be? If we work our way up the ontological levels, what's the lowest level of consciousness?
Ego self.
Ego self is definitely one of the lower ones. I don't know if it's the lowest.
Animal.
Based on science.
Okay, animals, right, is lower, good.
Rocks.
Rocks are lower. Is there anything lower than a rock? Poor rocks. What?
Darkness.
Darkness. The lowest form of consciousness is actually evil. Why do you think why do I say that? Why would I say that the lowest form of consciousness is that?
Because it's the furthest away from.
Yes, because of separation. What's the furthest away from, if there's full consciousness of everything, then the furthest away from full consciousness, or the most that turns away from consciousness, is evil. So the further you go away from consciousness, becomes the lower forms of consciousness. A rock is not very conscious, but it's also not following evil.
Mhm.
What's higher than what would be like the highest form of human consciousness?
Unity?
A state of unity. Okay, so unity in Sufism is a very high form of consciousness. Is there any further than unity? Is there any state higher than unity consciousness?
Love. The prophetic.
Love is part of it. Love is the...
Important. It's important what he's saying.
Exactly. Love is the nature of unity consciousness. In other words, the way to reach unity consciousness is through love. Right? And why? Because love is the unifying principle of the heart. Love is what makes your heart whole. If your heart's broken and fragmented, into different pieces, you will be unhappy. And if your heart's broken and fragmented into pieces, you will suffer. And you will be in pain. And out of your pain, you will do things like drink or do some way to get out of that pain. You'll try to find some way to cover up your pain. And you will end up destroying yourself in time. The way of healing the heart is not to cover it up. The way of healing the heart is to resolve the fragments. And the way you resolve fragments of the heart is through love. Love is, it brings the fragments back together and makes your heart one. When your heart's one, you feel love, you feel good, you're happy. When your heart's broken, you're fragmented, you're hurt inside. Okay? Why, do you know what the number one disease, mortal disease in the United States is?
Heart disease.
Heart disease. You know why? Because we are a broken-hearted culture. Across the board, in the West, we have lost love. And we have gone to materialism, to work, to mind, to separation. We don't have families, we don't have connection anymore. You know, you go over to India, the people are very poor, but boy, do they have heart. You know, they're running around, there's a lot of heart over there. You go to you know, many of the cultures in the, you know, these lower economic places, and the people are amazingly loving and kind, and, you know, they're very poor. But they have big families, and they love each other, and they have something very special, but they don't have wealth. We have great wealth, but we've lost our hearts. So my point is that no matter who you are, your number one thing that you have to do is heal your heart. The number one thing you have to do is heal your heart and bring your heart back together. If you broke your heart, your one fragment's over here, your one fragment's over there, and you've lost yourself. When I say you lost yourself, I mean you've lost the core of your heart. You've lost who you are. Who you are is your deep heart. Who you are is what is inside of you. It's what you love. It's what gives you life. You've got to get your hearts back. And the deepest part of your heart is the part of your heart that's connected to God. The deepest part of your heart is your divine heart. The part of you that is in the oneness itself. And you have that inside of you. But if you don't discover that, you do not know who you are. If you don't discover that, you don't really know who you are. You feel it, you're drawn to it, but you're missing, and you feel it in yourself. It's like deep down in yourself, you always say, there's something missing in me, right? There's some way I'm just a little bit off. There's some way I don't know who I am. There's some way I can't find myself. There's a place inside of me that got lost. Where am I? Who am I? What am I becoming? What happened to me? You know what happened to you? You forgot your heart. You lost your heart. So it becomes very, 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 very important that you find that and rebuild your heart. You have to rebuild your heart. When I say rebuild it, I mean find your deep heart again, reconnect it to God, and create this building. It's like a building inside of you, like a sacred building. Call it a temple or a church or a mosque, I don't care. It's a sacred building of holiness inside of you. And it transcends all religions. You can be any religion and build this holy temple inside of you. It doesn't go with only one religion. It goes with there are people in the church who have holy hearts. There's people in the temples, the synagogues with holy hearts. There's people in the Lakota sweat lodges with holy hearts. There's people in the Apache tribes with holy hearts. There's people sitting in the Hindu mountains with holy hearts. Holiness, it transcends religion. Religion is there to help you get to one thing, a holy heart. That's what religion is for. It's there to help you to make your heart a sanctuary for God. That's what religion's supposed to be doing. It's not what it does today, but that's what it's supposed to be doing. Your heart is supposed to be, your religion is supposed to be making you have a sacred heart. Okay? If you, and I say that, all religions can make you have a sacred heart if your religions are true and you're following them truly. The problem today is that most people do not follow their religions, and most religions have gotten lost anyways by following too many people that have changed things in different ways. Like we were talking this morning about the latest, which was that, what did you tell me this morning, that Queen Elizabeth is changing the Bible now. In England, the English Bible is being changed according to Queen Elizabeth. So there, you know, there's, you know, when people of any time change something, you change the very nature of that itself. Okay. So again, you know, going back to yourselves and this whole talk, you have to become strong in God right now. This is your time to really get strong in yourselves, and it is a very difficult time. For me, I don't know. I cannot remember in my life a more difficult time of inner sight. In other words, in the past, everything somehow had a certain clarity to it. Now, when you look inside, you just see clouds of darkness. It's like the whole world is like shrouded with this lights of deception. And so it becomes very hard in this time to get to the truth, to get to what's true. That's why people are suffering. People aren't suffering. The suffering that's going on for people right now is the suffering of not knowing what's true. That's the suffering that's happening inside of people right now. People are getting lost. They don't know what's true anymore. So your job, my job, our job is to come back to that level of connection and consciousness and truth, and to be able to hold it and be able to establish it and to be able to seek refuge in it. That's the, if I can really put the Sufi teachings in a nutshell, that's what it is right now. This is what we all have to do. Every one of us. Every single one of us. And I see this in all people, you know, teachers. I've heard the Dalai Lama talk about it. I've heard people in all different cultures talk about the difficulties that are happening right now. Okay, so we have to be strong in that refuge with God. Okay, well, can I get some? Yeah, go ahead. Right, yes.
I was just to respond back to that. It brings to mind a quote that if we truly keep our connection to God, He will become for us everything that we need.
That's what we want. That's the ultimate refuge. That's the ultimate refuge. And people try to take refuge in, you take a refuge in a teacher. You can take refuge in Christ. You can take refuge in Muhammad. You can take refuge in Moses. You can take refuge in, I don't know who else, Krishna or whatever, Buddha. But the truth of the matter is that all those, in my opinion, are less than God itself. In other words, the ultimate state of being in refuge of God and being able to carry that pure light of God is the highest. That's the highest state. And all these people, all these teachers, they're trying to get us there. They're trying to get us to, Christ was trying to get you to the Father. He was saying, come to, through me to the Father. Judaism, worship no God but me. There's the Ten Commandments. Islam, la ilaha illallah. They're in Hinduism. There's only pure universal consciousness, which is divinity. They're all the same statements. They're all the same statements in the Buddhism. So the Sufi teachings are about one thing, really, is how do we establish divine connection and divine consciousness, and not lose it. That's the whole teaching of Sufism is nothing more than that piece. How do we do that? You see, and following the rule book is not going to get you there. In other words, you can go and read the Bible and it will help you without doubt. But you know what? The Bible will not, you're going to have to become conscious of your inner being, otherwise you still may get thrown off your Bible. You can follow the Torah, but you know what? Unless you're conscious of your own hearts and aware of how your hearts are open or closed and what you're following, you may get thrown off your Judaism. You can follow the Quran and you can follow the teachings of Islam, but unless you have the deep inner connection, you can go astray. In other words, you can try to follow it, but many people follow the Quran and become fundamentalists, or they become, they'll do things in the name of God that is absolutely not right. So you see, the point is that religion itself is incredibly valuable, but it's not enough. There's something else, which is your connection to God itself. You have to shepherd that connection. You have to know that connection. You have to be in charge. And that your religion's supposed to be teaching you that. Unfortunately, most of them aren't really teaching it so much today. But that is what you're supposed to be learning inside, is how to have that deep connection to the oneness, and how to establish it, and how to seek refuge in it. Okay, I see it's probably bathroom time, so let's go ahead and take a break. We can take a 30-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll continue on with